The hour here with Doug Roberts. Also, we welcome Russell Wright back with us this morning because we have a very special guest.
Good morning, sir.
This morning.
Yes, we do.
How are you, sir?
Very good, thank you.
Yeah.
2 days in a row up this early. Y'all should be proud of me.
I'm telling you.
2 days in a row.
2 days.
Why?
I think he's wearing the same shirt.
2 days.
You know,
in a row.
the truth is,
I just have a bunch of shirts
I
that
was
look
about to
alike.
say I have so many black. We have like 2 loads of black because everything I have from all the years of training is black. She's like, do y'all ever get any T-shirts that not like you? No, not really.
No.
Now,
just
Doug's
not,
the guy to talk to with the nice.
Well, see, I noticed he had the beautiful orange yesterday for Auburn because I caught the navy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think he's got like 20 colors.
I
they
do.
all got the Alex City
They say
chiropractic.
Alex City Chiropractic.
So
I just went back to uniforms. I've always just worn whatever I felt like.
Yeah.
And about, I don't know, 6 weeks ago, I thought I need to be more professional and look more, together. So I got all these.
I have one other that's white, just kind of more dressing, but everything else is black. With black belts, that was the idea.
Right.
So yeah, I've got probably 3 like this, 3 like those. So it's yeah.
I guess
It's kind of the Einstein thing where we go like everything. You always had the same. You had 5 or 6 of the same color suits. It's kind of one of those deals.
It's really easy that way.
Yes.
Yeah.
As long as you don't misplace which is one pile, you got to make sure you got your clean pile we hadn't folded yet, or basically the pile that basically is not. So
Yeah.
be real careful.
Worn, not worn to wear. It's like the in and
Really
out
not
box
good.
on your desk.
Back in college, not so bad.
Right.
Or like
really bad.
Right.
when I was
Mother
single,
just
it's-
washed kind of thing, right?
It's dirty, clean. That file, yeah, I got
Yeah,
you.
we all know that, I think.
You know what? They brought something to mind, and we'll talk about this another time when you're here about the different colors of belts and what they all mean. Sometimes we'll go through all this because I saw some on your wall at your studio. I thought, now what does that mean? And it's, why is
Everyone
that
has a very
stripes?
distinct
And I don't get it.
symbol and reason behind.
We'll do that sometime. That'll be a good segment. But today we do have a great segment coming up.
Yes.
We got our copies of Brett Lechtenberg's new book, The Anti-Bully Program, yesterday, and oddly enough, in the news just this morning.
You see the one about the young man down in Florida?
Yep.
From Rutgers?
He was
14.
bullied all through his life while he lived in New York. He moved to Florida.
That's right.
Was bullied down there, and just unfortunately yesterday.
As the story went, he unfortunately had some sickness when he was a young child, so it stunted his growth to some degree. I don't know to what, but it kept on and kept on. The parents had been involved, it said, for several weeks, back and forth with this particular school system, going back and forth on this whole issue, with obviously no real true resolution. And he goes back in school, goes and gets his father's gun, goes into school, in the middle school, and commits suicide in the bathroom. And they go, well, I don't know why he did that. And he's like, well, he's trying to make a point that this is, maybe you remember me now.
Yep.
Which
And
is,
the problem is with young people in psychological studies and profiles and things, young people have this idea that with suicide, for example, that somehow they're going to get to see the people's reaction and the response, and they don't realize that it's that part of life is over. They're not here anymore, and so they want to make a point, but they're not really around to enjoy making that point. And I say that also.
The results of it, yeah.
The results of it. So they don't realize the consequences
absolutely.
of killing themselves.
And what it affects. There was a wonderful movie we watched at our teen movie night called To Save a Life. It's a wonderful Christian-based movie.
Great. I've seen the film.
Great
film.
So
Great
we
film.
saw it, and me and my wife were blown away. I said, this is one we're going to utilize and speak about on bullies and so forth, and also the popular culture as it is with the different cliques that you deal with and how, how short-term that's lived in school. But obviously boys and girls don't realize that because that is their world and doesn't see past that as we as adults do. And so the impact was tremendous on my students because we have teen movie nights that we do with our staff and our students, and then bring friends, and we had a great discussion afterwards. And it was based on a young man who went through all that and did that in the very beginning of the movie, and the ripple effect it had after that. And people it brought around and brought actually different people together, and it was actually a great film, and I highly recommend. But it brings this subject right to the surface, and it just puts it right out and go, let's address it, in this atmosphere, and they did it in a very wonderful way.
I had someone ask me just the other day. They saw a post and they said, "Do we have a bullying problem here?" I don't think we do. I'm like, I'm going to say yes, because I think every community to some level has a bullying program, because now it's not just the big tough kid picking on a little kid or maybe the quote nerd in class. There's so many other areas that could involve bullying.
And that's exactly it. It is so far spread now. It isn't the basic, verbal or physical, some exclusion we talked about a little bit yesterday that Brett brings out in his book. But when you're with the cyberbullying, and that is like a catch-all umbrella. There's so many different components to that it's like a spider web. And in fact, talking to Brett yesterday on the phone to set this up, he has got a book dedicated just to cyberbullying coming out in a very short time, where it really goes into so much depth because there's so many different parameters of that. If you remember a couple of years ago, one that just really broke my heart was there was a young girl that had been, for whatever reason, some other girl decided she didn't like her, whether it be a boy or something. I don't remember those exact details, but they continued to do that in such a way that there was even a parent that got involved, and so
a cheerleading incident.
That was it's something I think to agree, but they set up a fictitious Facebook or something, and it seemed like, if I'm not mistaken, if I recall it correctly, the other girl's mother started posting stuff as a boy, like he liked her and so forth, and then somehow pulled the rug out and did some very basically, I guess, offset things about she'd just go kill herself, and her parents came in. And the next day or within the next day or so, and found her basically, hung herself in her closet. And because it went on in big part because the other girl's mother, the girl that didn't like her, mother got involved in part of a popularity thing, and a boy or something like that, and the mother comes on and becomes a teenager as a boy like her, and that's how it sets it up and just really pushes her over the edge. And so, but when they went to court, here was the kicker, and that's what I'm bringing this to point. When they went to court, the best they could do was harassing communications. Wasn't that she had any actual part in making her do this? Go, really? Wow. So what the point is that it's gotten so far out with our new technology that it's really outside the perimeter of actually the laws now of how to handle it. That's why there's so many different groups now working within that. There's quite a few, and Brett brings it up, cites them in the book as well as reading through. It's almost so far out, and since it doesn't actually physically touch you, I think, in the cyber issue, that, well, it can't really be real. No, it affects you in every place. And what we also forget is the collateral damage it does down the line. The mothers, the fathers, the grandmothers, grandparents, the brothers and sisters, the neighbors, the friends, and it continues to ripple out. It's like throwing that pond on one side, or the stone on one side of the pond. It's going to get to the other side eventually. So I think, and now, long term, what capacity did that girl have to give back to society in a positive way that was taken from all of us? And that the young man that we read about yesterday was 14. It's heartbreaking to realize that there's so much that could be done, but a blind eye gets turned to because it just isn't. I don't think it's basically popular to look at that, because it goes back to us and our generation. Oh, it was just the whatever, the athlete just kind of hazing, just kind of picking on that. It'll pass. Well, that actual time of that has passed. We're in a new day and era. Listen, when someone can bump a line down the street here and everyone shuts down for a day, from the banks to this, and we're in a new different day and time when we talk about rippling effect.
You can't buy gas because somebody cut a line somewhere in the next town.
Because I can physically bully you here, but truth is, if I want to be so nefarious, I could get online and I could bully someone across the country somewhere else. I have no idea.
Under a different name, and we didn't even know it's you.
Correct.
See, that's scary.
So one of the things we bring out is how parents can be basically really involved in this. And actually, the biggest thing is, and it goes back to, I think, something we have in common is that years, we talk about being in exec protection together, is how do you basically prevent? Truth for us, if you had to basically protect a client, you had to actually physically put hands on, you've already blown so many different things before that happened. Prevention, what's the old saying, an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. It's without a doubt true. And there's some things you just can't call back, and like the little boy, you can't call that back. And so the sad thing is, the shame that goes along with the boys and girls along with that too, is they don't realize that others support that and support them, and there's something that can be done. And that's what we're trying to do, is actually get some action to this. And I truly believe, I know we talked about some bad issues we had years ago in the past with different school groups and things that just didn't handle well. I think what it is we have the ability, as well as we want to have the will for our administrators and our teachers to want to do something. They're just not sure what to do. This is I mean, me and Brett, went for years as a specialist in conflict resolution as executive protection guys. That's our world. And so there are great tools. It's like, I don't adjust myself. I know I'm all out and jacked up, but I don't know how to go about that. I know how to align myself very well. So I go to a specialist, right? I go to Dr. James.
That's right. Who happens to be my chiropractor too?
I mean, like, hey,
we have good taste.
I know, right? I don't know what's wrong, but something doesn't work here, and this hurts over here. He's like, oh yeah, Lord of mercy, how are you walking?
Get on that table, boy.
Yeah,
I have a question, and this might be something that we want to ask Master Lechtenberg when we have him on the phone, maybe. And if you want to defer this to him, that's fine, because I have not read this book yet. I glanced through it the other day. But in the anti-bully program, what we kind of look at here is you're training, for instance, your child or your grandchild or whatever child is in your circle of influence. You're training that child how to be an anti-bully, how to confront or avoid or prevent or react, depending on what level it's escalated
Correct,
to.
and what stage they're in. Roger.
Does he deal with a way, for example, when you're dealing with in a social setting, let's say there's 5 kids there and someone's trying to bully this kid, does he also take an approach in this,
yes.
hey, as a society, and I say that microcosmically
yes,
for the
yes.
school, let's go, this is 3rd grade or 8th grade or whatever, as a society, here's how you as a group can squelch the whole bullying.
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that is a very big part. We actually do that within the program that I do at the studio. Our actor training we're starting today is actually how that when one is how other friends can come in and influence. Because here's the kind of strange thing about, you're talking about the social the sociology of it all. You have, let's look at 3 different groups for example. You got the one that's being bullied, right? The 1 or 2 that's perpetuating the bullying, and then you have a lot more that's around that's actually just the witness.
Neutral zone.
That's correct. Well, the truth is, what we try to point out is there's no neutral. Either, I mean, because if you're not, helping, you're still basically supporting this indirectly. So
you're allowing it.
Correct. We've seen a bunch of studies, and there was a great show that I saw a few years ago where a lady had basically did this really case study where she put it was a controlled environment, had parents in watching, but put basically girls in and also did boys, and they had a couple of them that were already that were set up that were actually actors to perpetuate a bullying situation. And they saw were some, and there was one girl that had a really good self-awareness about herself, and others that stepped up to the bully and goes, hey. And then everybody else kind of just came in, didn't say anything, but stood behind her. And that, even the girl that was actually the actress that was doing the bullying said, when the interview said, I got kind of intimidated and scared when all of a sudden I've got just everybody just standing there looking at me. And of course there's embarrassment, because this goes into what the bully doesn't want. He wants that kind of attention where he's the center of attention, whether it's, and it comes from all walks of life. Sometimes we think it's the kid has everything and so he feels narcissistic he can, or the kid has nothing and nothing to prove. Well, it cuts all parameters and all socioeconomic visions there.
Let's take a break and we'll come back with the interview with Brett Lechtenberg.
Let him speak on that directly.
Good morning, Lake Martin. And we're back here on Good Morning Lake Martin. It's about 28 past the hour here with Russell Wright and Doug Roberts. And we also have on the phone one of our good friends, Brett Lechtenberg. Brett, good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kobe. How are you?
I'm doing just great. How are things in Utah this morning?
It's still dark and cold here, so.
I was wondering, what time is it in Utah right now?
It's about 6:30. It's not too bad.
Okay.
Yeah. Man, it's great to have you with us. And again, thank you for your friendship and for your willingness to join us this morning. Let's talk a little bit about your book. But before we do that, just remind people, you've been on the show with us before a few weeks ago. Tell everybody about Brett Lechtenberg and exactly what you do in Utah.
Well, I've had a martial arts school here in Utah for about 18 years, a little over 18 years now. And in that time, we've been working with kids and families. That's really been our focus. We teach, traditional martial arts, but also family protection classes, anti-bullying classes. We teach kids goal setting and leadership development. So that's really been our approach, as a kind of a holistic family atmosphere, kind of trying to mirror good family values with everybody that comes through our door.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I want to start and use the rest of our time talking about your book, and I'm looking forward to reading this. I'm actually going to read this book. That surprises everybody here. But you and I had a conversation not so long ago. Why don't I just ask the first question and let you describe to us, because some people actually don't even know what bullying means, and I think maybe you have a great definition of the word bullying. Tell us about that, Brett.
Well, when it comes to bullying, surprisingly enough, what most people don't realize is that there's not a universally accepted definition of bullying, and that's one of the problems. if you don't have a solid definition of what it is that you're trying to help and trying to stop, then how are you actually going to be able to help the problem and stop it? I've actually sat down with principals and teachers alike, parents, and they actually ask, well, what exactly is bullying? I'm confused. So in my book, I gave my definition of bullying, which is really pretty simple. Any action or words that cause someone else to be scared, intimidated, or somehow coerced doing something they wouldn't normally do. And many times that comes from a perceived imbalance where the person who's doing the bullying somehow feels like they've got some kind of power over the person that they are bullying. And so that's the definition that I use.
I guess you kind of got to know what you're dealing with before you know how to deal with it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Exactly. And that's just, one of what I consider the three big problems with, what's going on. And people just don't realize that. So I think that's got to be the first step, is people have to define it so they know exactly how to combat it.
Absolutely. In fact, Brett, can you expand upon a little bit about some of the different tools that we've actually worked with for years on? Not only, of course, we have the foreman about how to basically avoid, if you will, the evade, but how it goes down. Because something that Cubby brought up that right before you came on was that how some people go, well, do we really even have a bullying problem? And I think how so many people don't realize what capacity bullying actually takes over from not only the coercion, the different categories that we actually are quite aware of, that it's not just always the punch the other kid in the face thing, which I think everybody thinks that is the case. Can you expand upon a little bit about the different types of bullying and how it affects and how it kind of works from there?
Sure. Well, one of the things, too, that makes it kind of an interesting issue is that bullying is somewhat perception. What you, Russell, might think is bullying, I might not, or Cubby might have a different opinion. And that's one of the things that can make it a little bit more difficult is that perception. But we really look at bullying as specifically one of the big problems is manipulation with kids. And that's one thing kids don't understand is that. And so what will happen is, like a lot of times I'll do a school talk or working with some kids, and I'll use the example, well, have you ever told your friend or heard somebody say something to the effect of, hey, if you don't do this, then, you won't be my friend, or you won't be able to be part of our group, or whatever. And that manipulation can be a really big bullying issue, and that causes people to feel a kind of a sense of isolation, or that they have to follow along in order to be accepted in a peer group. And if they're not accepted, I think we've all probably had times where we haven't been accepted into a group, and it really made us feel bad because of the exclusionary tactics of those people, if that makes sense to everybody.
Absolutely.
And what, Brett, maybe could you define a little bit? I think sometimes, obviously, in all, we'll say, social settings, there's social interaction that's normal, and then there's always that sort of hierarchy or pecking order, if you will, whether you're with adults or a basketball team or a group of kids. At what point does it cross over then from being just normal, hierarchical situating, as it were, positioning, to the point that it actually becomes bullying? Where's that line cross, would you define, or would you say?
I think that's kind of a tough one, but it really resorts or boils down to when somebody starts to actually be excluded from something because they've chosen not to try and fit in, or they haven't met some kind of standard, that becomes the line. And I think for everybody it's a little bit different. That's why it's a little bit of a gray area. So I don't know that there's a clear-cut answer that everybody could adopt for something like that. I think that's a difficult question.
Right. And maybe that's part of the problem with the perception of bullying is, where does it become unacceptable? And when does it just go from being kids fooling around, as it were, for when parents or teachers are observing it, to all of a sudden, hey, this kid is definitely being bullied, or he is, this is having a negative impact on his life, as opposed to, a good direction, or helping this child, I guess, when it goes negative instead of positive for impact.
Yeah, and I think if you're watching from the outside, the key indicator is really the child or the person that's experiencing this. I think it's pretty easy to tell when someone starts to become uncomfortable or to feel ashamed. I mean, you can see those signs generally pretty quickly, or pretty readily is a better way to put it, from the outside.
Right.
And I think that you have to have good judgment, and if you're going to step in, you have to see what's going on, and you have to see that person's reaction. Because again, what some people have really high confidence, they have good self-esteem, and they're able to deal with negative interactions a lot more healthily than people who don't.
Right, they can sort of deflect that and move on.
Right.
As opposed to absorb it and change their direction.
Such that, that if they're not accepted for some reason, they're able to go, you know what, that's fine. I'll just move to the next thing. I'll move to the next topic or whatever it is.
Brett, I guess if I had to ask a question about the book, when you wrote this book, when you felt compelled to write this book, pretty much who did you have in mind? Are you looking pretty much at the victim, or how to help the parents? Is it to help teachers, or is it all of the above?
I really looked at it from the perspective of what can you do to help the parents and to help the kids. And obviously in there, it makes it pretty easy to work with the teachers. The book was designed in kind of two facets. One, hopefully it's a guide for parents can use with their kids to teach them the confidence indicators and other things that go into having self-confidence to keep them from being the target of a bully, or at least minimize the chance of them being the target of a bully. Mm-hmm. The second part of that was, okay, here's a step-by-step plan that you can use if your child's already been the target of a bully. And what you can do as a parent, how you need to handle that if it's happening at school, with the schools, if it's happening at a daycare, you know how to handle that. And then the tools that you can use with your child to get their confidence back up, get their self-esteem back up, and turn the tide so they go from feeling unempowered to empowered and knowing that their parents are there to help them. So it's really kind of a twofold thing.
Could you expand a little bit? There's one of the areas I did like was the confidence indicators, which we always talk about in our classes, because I've been to your program over the course of many years and seen that, and vice versa. And we talk about everything from the posturing to basically how people carry themselves specifically. And one thing you bring out in the book is, why is it that some heavyset kids get bullied and some don't? Some with glasses do, some don't. And you talk a good bit about the confidence indicators. Can you expand upon that for the audience? Because I think that's extremely interesting and has a lot to do with the preventionary method of the bullying aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question, Russell. What I think people don't always understand, and that you and I may understand a little better, is the way that bullies, other types of criminals, the kind of ways that they pick their targets.
Right. We refer to as soft targets and hard targets.
The confidence indicators is a phrase I coined to be able to help describe what those three main confidence indicators are. That's the way that you make eye contact with another person or people in a group, your body posture, the way that you carry yourself as you walk around, as you interact with the world, and then the tone of your voice and the way that you speak. Those are what I consider the three main confidence indicators. And if you were to go to a school or go, to a work environment or whatever, if you watch the people interacting in those environments, the ones that generally the ones that have the best confidence indicators, they walk with their head up, shoulders back, they make eye contact with people, they speak clearly, they're to the point. Those people generally don't have problems with any kind of negative situation as far as bullying or someone trying to get over on them. And if somebody does try that, it just rolls off their back. It's not a big deal. Conversely, if you look at people who, if you were watching kids at school in the hallway, and you watch the kids that walk down the hallway with their head down, they're kind of slumped over. When you talk to them, they don't make good eye contact. They don't speak very clearly. See, then a bully's going to look at that and say, I could probably get something from this kid, or I could get this kid to do what I want, because even though they may not call them a confidence indicator or any phrase that anybody else uses, they intuitively understand what they're seeing and what they're experiencing, and it's the vibe that other person gives off.
Yeah.
Right, and that's adult as well as just kids too, as you pointed out a moment ago. We've talked about many years.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Brett, if you'll stay with us one moment, we're going to take a quick commercial break. We'll be back with more with Brett Lechtenberg and the anti-bully program here on Good Morning Lake Martin. Back here on Good Morning Lake Martin, it's about 44 past the hour here with Doug Roberts and Russell Wright, and also on the phone, author of the Anti-Bully Program, Brett Lechtenberg, joining us from Utah this morning. Brett, one of the questions that Russell and I have discussed, and Doug and I as well, you know, sometimes I feel like maybe a child is being bullied and they're just afraid to tell somebody, whether they're afraid of the retribution from it or further action. How do you deal with telling a child, say, listen, you got to tell somebody, you got to talk to us? How do you deal with that?
Well, I think you've got to role play those kind of situations with kids. It's not enough for most kids to just tell them, hey, if anything happens, tell me, because their interpretation of things that's going on can be much different than what our interpretation in our mind is. So role-playing situations with children is very, very helpful, and really making sure that they understand that you're there to help them. I think there's unfortunately many times where parents, they don't see the bullying problem as a very big problem because either A, they didn't experience it very much as a child themselves, so they don't know what it's like, or B, they just say, oh, it's just kids being kids.
Right.
And that's not the case. I mean, it can be very damaging, as we know. And so in order for kids to want to talk, they have to have more open lines of communication with their parents, and they have to know that their parents are actually going to take action if there is a problem.
Mm-hmm. Supportive, yes.
Russ kind of alluded to this earlier. You know, the stress of the situation can cause people to not act appropriately or forget to do things, and that's why I put in the book a very step-by-step method of what parents should do. And on our resource site, there's actually those pages written out so parents can actually print them out and use them as detailed notes. So when they go sit with a principal or a daycare provider or police department or whatever, they have detailed notes. But kids have to know that they have to speak up, and that a bully's power, one of their big weapons is that they, if they keep it quiet, they can make it go on longer. And if parents can relay that to their kids, if teachers can relay that in school, and if kids can understand that, then that'll take away one of a bully's great weapons, and they don't have to worry about keeping it quiet or retribution or any of those other topics.
And let's please make the point that once they do that as well, don't forget, we were talking about collateral damage earlier, well, you also have collateral basic support. So once that happens at that point, agree, if you will, Brett, that then how many other kids do they keep from being bullied because that one had to step up and that bully got put in check and change that behavior? You know.
Good point.
Right?
I agree. Yeah, that's what I call the magnification process.
Right,
That's what's
exactly.
in that free report that everybody can download. It's, of course, I expand on it even more in the book, but it's in the free report. The more light you can bring to a subject, the more likely you are to going to get correction, or you're going to get help with it. You know, if somebody doesn't know there's a problem, we all tend to be, you know, kind of out of sight, out of mind, and the squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So if you don't know there's a problem, you're probably not looking for one. But once you know there's a problem, we tend to get on it fairly quickly, the average person will. So, again, that's what I call the magnification process, bringing as much light to the situation as possible through as many channels as possible, whether it's teachers, principals, parents, other kids, the office staff, whatever it is. You know, you're going to shine a bright light on it, and we're going to make the problem go away quickly.
One of the things that I like about the book, Brett, and you just alluded to it kind of twice, was at the end of the book, you don't just, you know, say, hey, here's the problem. I like the fact that there's actually a very clear and concise method of dealing with it for both the parents and the students or the young people in the school, in the church, in the family, in the whatever social setting they happen to be in, or unfortunately in a family setting even possibly. But I like the fact that you've actually got, like you said, there's forms that you can fill out. There's a step-by-step method that I'm going to assume is proven and tried and works. Otherwise, it wouldn't be in your book. That actually tells people, here's what you need to do, rather than leaving them hanging at any level.
Concise, pragmatic manner, yes.
Right.
Right. And those forms really came about because of so many interviews with parents or conversations where it would be, you know, my kid's being bullied and I don't know what to do, you know, which was
how many years have we spent
so far. And through those conversations, I came to realize you know what? Parents get so emotional, and rightfully so. We all get emotional when it comes to issues with our children, that they forget to ask or gather certain types of information, and because of the emotion, you get certain things just to do that if it was somebody else's kid, you might look at it and go, well, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? And of course, it's easier when you're a third party, when you're standing from the outside looking in. And so that's where those forms came from, was really my interactions and interviews with people, and it's like, okay, we got to create a process. So even if they're emotional, they don't have to remember anything. They just have to remember that they need to gather the information, put it on the form.
Yeah.
Brett, we've got a couple of minutes left in this segment. Russell reminded me there's a DVD that goes along with this. Is that available now as well?
It's not on a DVD. What that is that's part of our online program. There's 13 videos that kind of walk you through the process. So people who maybe don't like to read the book or want to do audio type stuff, they can literally log on with their iPod or iPad or on their computer, and they can watch the videos, or they could even just listen to them as they're driving to work on their iPhone or something. Mm-hmm. So that is not a separate DVD, but it is all available to people on the website.
Now, there was a component there.
Tell everybody how they can find your book, Brett. Where can they purchase
Well,
this
actually,
book?
I think we've got a link set up for you guys on your Good Morning Lake Martin for after the show. We're going to have it down for you guys, so any of your audience
awesome.
can actually come to you guys and be able to go straight there. Is that right, Brett? Did we not work on that link? Is that correct?
Well, yeah, the stuff I sent you last night, I mean, if Cubby will put that on his Facebook page, then people will be able to download the free report. That's for sure right off of there.
We'll address that as soon as the show's over with.
Otherwise, they can go to antibullyprogram.com, and that's the free report. And then they can follow up with that, and there's a complete program where they get a downloadable ebook, they get the 13 videos, they get the access to the resource site, through which will not only have the videos and the book, but it has the CDC's report on bullying and how it relates to suicide. There's all the forms for meeting with a principal and teacher, for meeting with your child, all that stuff. Internet safety contract, and a number of other things is on there.
Yeah, because we're going to not only, we worked on this late last night to have it ready for the show. We just didn't have a chance to get on the line before the show this morning. But we also, Brett, because I know we had a little short time, we're going to also, you've got it set up in a very short time. I think your cyberbullying book is going to be actually, and component of that's going to be joining this as well. So we'll have that in the time to come that will be able to be linked into the Good Morning Lake Martin, as well as I think, in fact, we've already got our link set up on United Arts Training Center's Facebook now. We were able to do that yesterday afternoon and get you guys set up. Well, we'll have you set up as soon as the show's over with this morning, so your audience can go there. Good. Can you take that a little step further on your cyberbullying? Because that's one that's also near and dear, because I know the effects that we've had just dealing with in our facility. I know you're like me for many years. We've talked offline on the phone how many hours, literally thousands of hours we spent off the mat with parents in the office talking about that, and now more so, I think, with Facebook and other components of the internet. Explain a little bit on the cyberbullying, because that is becoming a much bigger new monster that most people are not even are aware of, or at least don't have be able to wrap their head around. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Right. Sure. I talk a little bit about cyberbullying in the first book, but I really see those as two separate animals, if you will. And the programs that I put out, I wanted people to be able to read that book or watch the videos in 90 minutes or less, and then be able to fix their problem in 72 hours or less. And I think that's very reality. But and so that's also the approach I took with the cyberbullying product. Was a lot of parents, grandparents, are not incredibly tech savvy, and it can seem like a big overwhelming topic. But I tried to do the same thing in this book and in this program, is really give you parents or grandparents a really easy step-by-step system for what I call gathering and capturing the information, and so that you can store it. But yet your child, if they're on a cell phone, doesn't have to continue to see it and read those texts. I walk through the process in video form and written form of how to block a text, how to do a screen capture, and it's all just a couple of keystrokes. And I think the people that I've rolled this out to and showed it to, and I intentionally picked a little bit older audience. Everybody said, "Wow, this is pretty easy. I understand this. This isn't very complicated like I thought it was." And that's obviously exactly what I was going for, is how to make a step-by-step process that's really easy to follow, so that anybody can capture, like I said, gather and capture the information from a cyberbully, and gives them a plan of what they can do to help their child if they are cyberbullied, and how they can combat that.
Okay. Hey, Brett, let me take a quick break. Let me take a quick break, and I'll come back with more. This is Good Morning Lake Martin.
Okay.
Here on Good Morning Lake Martin, Doug Roberts and Russell Wright here with me, along with Brett Lechtenberg on the phone. Brett, we got about 2 minutes to wrap up. What's your final thoughts? And tell us again, we're going to be working on ways to get the book here on our Facebook page.
Yep.
Tell us your final thoughts here.
You know what, I think the best thing is, Covey, is you're doing it. You're being a great role model and leader in your community, and I think that's awesome and really appreciated. I think the best thing is, if people just want to jump on your Facebook page and click the link to get the free report, that's awesome. And if some reason they're not able to do that at some point in the future, they can go to antibullyprogram.com, and then I believe Russell's got a link to the free report on his
yes, sir.
His website. I don't remember the exact web address for that off the top of my head, but they can go to the United Arts
Training Center,
United Arts
Facebook.
Training Center.
Facebook, yep. United Arts Training Center,
go right
Facebook.
on their Facebook page and download the report. And I think if nothing else, if they didn't do anything else, it'll give them a structured framework of some things that they can do. If they need some more information, then obviously they can get the book or the program. The book's available on Amazon. If you're not a big reader, I recommend everybody just get the program, because you get the books, the videos, all the resources, all the information. And when I make new videos and add new stuff, they just automatically get it.
All right. Well, Brett, it's been great having you with us today. Thank you for your friendship. Thank you for writing this book. I think it's a great tool for students and parents to use, because this is a problem, and everybody needs to deal with this. And I'm looking forward to talking to you again very soon, especially about the cyberbullying. Keep us informed on that, and we'll be back with you soon. Okay, my friend?
Much love, my brother.
Thank you, Brett.
All right, thank you, guys. You guys keep doing your great work, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank
Very
you.
good, sir.
All right, we're at 30 seconds. Listen, thank you so much, Russell, for coming out.
I appreciate it. Give us the
great
platform.
information, and listen, there'll be more information about how to get this book. We're less than 20 seconds, but we'll give you
Please
more.
know right now, again, our Facebook, United Arts Training Center, it's already on there now. We'll have yours soon, and we actually have our anti-bully program, the actual hands-on program, going on starting today at our facility for the next 4 weeks, too.
Great. All right, we'll be back tomorrow morning with more here on Good Morning Lake Martin.
Lake Martin.
See ya.